Hello, good afternoon. How are you? My name is Rupert Saville. I am the acting unit head of the New South Wales Litter Prevention Unit in the EPA. I've worked in the litter prevention unit for about 3 or 4 years now. It's a long time to be working in litter. I used to have dreams. But no, I joke. I really enjoy it. I particularly enjoy working... Oh, they're not going to stay there. I particularly enjoy working with councils and communities on the projects that we lead. We are about 6 years into an 8-year program, so we're now starting to have that conversation with our stakeholders about potentially what comes next after the program. What's the legacy we want to leave, and then what's the vision post-2020, post the Premier's priority, potentially after the program is finished and God forbid the money all runs out. So today's really about starting that conversation. We have already started this conversation with a lot of councils, but we're starting that conversation more broadly and interested in your feedback in the framework and the ideas that we have for where we want to take litter prevention in New South Wales makes sense to you. So broadly, I've got about 20 minutes. There's about 20 slides. I'll talk a little bit about what we've delivered already, what we've achieved, what are the keys to the success, and what are some of the priorities, challenges coming up. And then what's the next steps? Where do we take all this? Where do we take all the achievements and successes that we've done and ensure we continue the momentum going forward? So just broadly, you're obviously all aware that litter is the Premier's priority. We've been banging that drum for a long time and we'll keep banging it while we remain a priority. So for those who don't know, the former Premier Mike Baird announced litter as one of his 12 top priorities. And the target was to reduce the volume of litter by 40% by 2020. It's been a game changer for litter prevention. It's raised the profile of litter prevention. It's given all the stakeholders a common vision. Working towards this 40% target, it's really rallied the troops, and it's been a great time to be involved in litter. We've had $50 million towards litter prevention for this program, for this 8-year program from 2013 to 2021. And like I said, 6 years in, we've got a couple of years left. We've learned a lot, we've achieved a lot, we've done lots of stuff. Now's the time for us to talk together about how we use these remaining years to not only nail the target, because we're not there yet, but how do we set ourselves up going forward. So just quickly, what's already been delivered. You're all familiar with the TOSA campaign. We've delivered 6 TOSA education and awareness campaigns across 2 phases. Starting with the Hey TOSA campaign, which was around for about 4 or 5 years. That was big, that was bold, that was in your face, that was about getting attention. And we got the community's attention with that. We have 9 out of 10 people are aware of the campaign. 9 out of 10 people in the New South Wales community support the campaign. It's effective, we've got your attention. Now we've moved on to the second phase, which is about really changing behaviour. And this campaign is now the Don't Be a Tosser campaign, and we're using some of the excuses that people use to continue littering. A lot of the excuses that we have here, there's an example there isn't a bin, what else I can do? These are excuses that people use all the time to justify their own littering behaviour. So that campaign is about changing behaviour, and it's working. I'm not going to go into the stats. I seem to come up to these presentations and I continue to kind of tell everyone how great the campaign is. Last time I was up, I think it might have been last year, I was up here and the following speaker compared it to a dandruff commercial. I have no idea what he was smoking in the break. It was very confusing, but the campaign is working. We've got the results. If you want them, I'll share them with you. We're seeing clear changes in community behaviour and attitudes. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So we've delivered 6 education campaigns, 13 litter prevention grant programs, $9.4 million for 220 local community and council projects. So we've not only delivered through these programs bins and signs and campaigns, but we've delivered an army of litter experts. Any council or community person that's been involved in one of these litter prevention projects is now a litter prevention expert. They've all drunk the Kool-Aid, they all understand the strategies and what you do and how you measure and how you design a project. So it's those types of expertise, those individual expertise. The Nick Jones of the world, where is he? Here he is, telling me about the beautiful journey he's had on a litter prevention program. How do we ensure those expertise, if Nick leaves council, aren't lost when he goes? How do we ensure they're embedded in the organisation? And that's the framework that we're now talking about. More on that. We've obviously delivered return and earn, massive infrastructure around New South Wales, enormously successful, 1.6 billion containers returned, 648 return points established. I'll talk more on the results shortly. The report to EPA litter prevention program has been established, so community members can register report littering from vehicles. Enforcement training courses, online modules. We've got litter prevention toolkits, guidelines, resources, tools. We've got a local litter check online, which is an online resource where community councils can access and go assess. It guides them through the assessment of a local space and helps them design a litter prevention project. They can punch in all their data and they can use that to then track their progress over time. Councils such as Parramatta Council are now using this tool as their baseline for litter prevention, so picking a number of spots, going out doing their local litter checks, and then they'll use that every year, and all their data's in there. They can track it. You can see everyone else's data. We've got a big database now of litter checks and behavioural stuff and the community surveys. So I guess, and then we've delivered some litter cigarette butt trials, which I'll talk more about too. I guess I'm just giving you a quick summary to show that we've done lots of stuff in 6 years. We've delivered lots. We've learnt lots. We understand what works. And we want to make sure that this is not lost, that all this stuff, all these gains that all this momentum that we've built, doesn't come to an end if the program comes to an end and other priorities go elsewhere. That someone stepping into a litter prevention role can pick up where we've left off, and we can keep moving forward. So that's what's been delivered so far. In terms of what's been achieved. We are 3 percentage points off the Premier's priority target, so we've reduced the volume of litter by 37%. You can see that graph there is the reduction in litter volume in New South Wales. I should have gone back a little bit further, but you can see litter sort of stagnates around for a while. Program starts, and we see effort equals reward. We see this lovely little downward trend. We're not there yet. We've still got a few little percentage points to knock off. We have seen a 57% reduction in eligible container volume since the introduction of return and earn. That's huge. We've seen 70% litter reduction across our grant projects. We've seen clear shifts in community behaviour as a result specifically of our TOSA campaign too. So in our latest TOSA campaign, as I said, we're focusing on some of the internal excuses people use to litter. And we're seeing a marked jump in the amount of people that are recognising themselves as litterers, which is exactly what we want. People all know that littering's not wrong, but we use these sort of internal excuses not to do it. So the fact that we are getting through with this, calling out these excuses, there's not a bin, what else can I do? Clearly calling people out on the excuses they use, and they've responded in the social research. We've seen a big jump in, I actually am a litterer. And the next step is banging them over the head and telling them don't do it. So that's successful. We've got 38,000 community litter reporters registered. We've issued some 40,000 fines as a result of community reports. We're about to do an upgrade of the system. It's a little bit clunky at the moment. We're about to do some customer journey mapping, it's called, with our registered reporters to improve the process, and we want to increase that number to 50,000. I plucked that number out of my head today. So what have been the keys to our success? The litter prevention strategy is key, obviously, and that comes down to process, knowing what to do. We've got clear steps involved. Anyone who's been involved in the litter prevention grants program knows you need education, you need enforcement, you need infrastructure, and you need to continue monitoring and evaluating everything you're doing. So you're tweaking lots of different things. So that's key, knowing what to do and monitoring everything you're doing. The Premier's priority has been, as I said, a game changer. It has raised the profile of litter from what has probably been sort of an end-of-pipe waste issue. It's now front and centre of government's attention. It's got leadership, we've got target, we've got accountability. We have to keep reporting on what we're doing, and that has been really, really amazing in driving the momentum. And as I said, building a coalition of people all working towards this target. Resources has obviously helped. Giving people time, giving people, funding people to do this work. Having that done over 8 years an 8-year program is key. We've been able to do things right. We've been able to test things. We've been able to take the time in finding out what works, change. So resources is around about permission, giving people permission to do things the right way. And then the commitment of our partners and collaborators is key too. Obviously, we can't do that without people in the room that are leading some of these projects. But commitment's also about understanding why we're doing it as well. So it's not just around the 40% target. That's a result of what community wants. It's having your partners and your collaborators committed because they know they don't want litter on the ground. We don't want a dirty space. We don't want plastic going into the ocean. We don't want to keep paying people to pick it up. Having that clear sense of purpose is also key. So that's a snapshot here. The lovely little diagram next to is kind of lining up our framework, which I'll talk more about with those keys to success. So and I'll talk more about that, but litter prevention strategy is process, knowing what to do. That's key. Having a premier's priority, it's about leadership. You need leadership. You need permission. You need to give people permission to do the things that and the time and the resources to do the things they need to do properly. And then commitment, understanding why we're doing this. We're not just doing this for a target, we're doing this because the community wants it and we want cleaner spaces. So they're the keys to our success. Some priorities, challenges and opportunities. What's coming up? Our main focus, obviously, as I said, is achieving the Premier's priority. It's not done yet. We're a little bit off. The upcoming data, bips around a little bit. The next 18-19 National Litter Index results might show we're still around the 37% mark. So the 2019-20 NLI, National Litter Index, is the key metric that we need to hit to achieve our target. If we don't achieve that priority. So the upcoming November 2019 is the first count that fits into that metric. So if you can all get your dustpan and brooms out around November, that would be great. Marine litter is an area of concern. Obviously, the community is demanding much more action on that. The scale of the problem is only being realised now about how much plastic's in the ocean. Single-use plastics, communities demanding more on that. We've got the marine litter campaign coming up. Is that? Oh, yes. Anyway, sorry. Just about to play a video, and the creators I just saw sitting in the audience. So we've got an upcoming marine campaign coming up. Yeah, it's great. At the end of the year. So more on that. And as always, we have this will sort of fit in with a suite of TOSA materials, but we've got we'll have collateral and campaign material that is freely available for councils and communities to use in their local spaces. As I said, we've just run a cigarette butt litter behaviour change trial, which has been a leading behaviour change trial that hasn't been done anywhere in the world, and the results have been quite amazing. It's been one of those problems that has been really hard to crack. So we will have a program opening up soon, which will include grant funding available for councils and communities to do stuff in local spaces as well. Community litter grants, we're just about to open up a new program of community litter grants. Again, this is talking about legacy and where we take the program. We see this as a really important thing to build confidence and ownership in communities that want to do something in that space. And we're creating with this program litter experts. So some of the council people that have come through the litter grant program are now experts in litter prevention, and they'll be assigned community groups, and they'll work with those community groups to build up their expertise. So it's about passing on that legacy. I don't know if this video is going to play, but this is just a little clip of the marine campaign tester. It's beautiful work, Nick. There's a couple of little snippets that we tested the last campaign, so we'll build on that for the forthcoming campaign, so keep an eye out for that. So obviously lots happening. We're thinking now, as I've sort of been saying, is what happens next? How do we maintain all this momentum when we're no longer a Premier's priority? How do we embed all these things into our organisations, into our networks? And what's the new vision after we've lost after we've achieved our 40% target, touch wood? What comes next? How do we have a united vision that do we have a vision that unites our other stakeholders? We've started the conversation already with a lot of our stakeholders, and there's general unanimity on what that vision is. We all want to be the cleanest state. That was the impetus for the Premier's priority 40% target. New South Wales has always been a lot dirtier than other states. 40% target brings us down to a level where we are the cleanest state, but we've got to keep going. But the community wants to live in, New South Wales residents want to live in a state that is the cleanest state. We want to be a world leader in litter prevention. We want sustained behaviour change. We want zero tolerance of litter. And I think about cigarette butts here. It's funny, as a community, we do tend to tolerate cigarette butt littering. We don't tolerate other types of litter, but we do tend to tolerate people littering. I don't. I've got the bruises to show when I call people out for it. But we do, for some reason, cigarette butt litter is in a different space, and I feel if you solve that problem, that sets a standard for broader litter prevention and how we tolerate litter as a community. So I think we need to do more on that. We want litter to be seen as a lost resource. I think the return and earn has been very valuable in getting people to think about litter as having a value. It's not litter, it's actually waste, and assigning a value to that I think is important. We want the community to be empowered and supported to act. We want people who come into this space to know what to do, who to talk to, what they're doing, why they're doing it. And this centres around broad ownership of litter prevention. And that's kind of the vision. I think that last point around ownership is key, and that's something we'll be talking a lot more about, is how do we kind of pass on ownership of litter prevention to all our networks and our organisations. So essentially our vision involves communities, organisations, government agencies having capability, confidence, knowledge and permission to prevent litter in their local spaces. We talk a lot about when we started in this litter prevention program, the problem seemed too big. We didn't know who to talk to, didn't know what to do, which really it was like, how can we solve this? We've got this target. But slowly you build a coalition, you understand what works, you build confidence, you build, you're empowered, you understand what works and what doesn't. And there's a real kind of sense there that we're in a special place now. God, I sound like a motivational speaker sometimes, but we do feel like we're in this special space that we need to kind of make sure not lose. And that comes down to all the, as I said, all the knowledge that we've all got, the expertise, making sure that in our councils, in our organisations, that is pushed throughout the organisation and not lost just with individuals. So what does this mean, all this stuff that I've been crapping on about? This is the legacy, this is the framework we have created that fits in all those learnings that we've talked about of what works and how we set litter prevention up in New South Wales for the long term. We call it our Own and Act framework. You don't need to look at this box, it probably doesn't make sense. I just wanted to put it there so you knew it's not just words on a page. We've actually thought about a framework there. But it involves what we call these 4 enablers that we know we need if we're wanting to enact sustained behaviour change and we want to embed litter prevention into our organisation. We need these 4 enablers, and it goes back to what I was talking about before. You need process. You need someone who's in an organisation to understand what are the steps. Okay, what's the strategy? Yes, we all know we need education, enforcement, infrastructure. We need to monitor and evaluate everything we do, but we also need to know who we talk to in the organisation as well. 80 minutes. We need commitment. We need to understand why we're doing it. So once the 40% target goes, what are we doing this for? I know that seems like a simple question, but it's not always clear why people are doing what they're doing, why we are preventing litter. We need permission, so we need funding, we need dollars, we need resources, we need to fund litter prevention positions in our organisation. And we need leadership, we need clear vision, we need accountability, and we need targets. So in a practical sense, I'll just use an example to try and explain what that all means. The New South Wales EPA has been doing a lot of work with the Roads and Maritime Services Organisation to reduce roadside litter. We started these conversations probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and we started at the operational level with operational managers, and we focused on process, on number 1. This is how you go out and you do a litter prevention project. Go and collect your data. Find out what it's telling you, go upstream, do your strategy, do your education, do your enforcement, put up some signs. Oh, yep, they all said that makes sense to us. We did a couple of training sessions with them, they knew what to do, went away. A year later we came back, talked to the operation, how'd you go? Oh, no money, we couldn't do it. We're too busy doing all these other things. So we spent all this time focusing on number 1, and when we got back there just wasn't that permission. They weren't allowed to go out there and do that. There was leadership. They had the Premier and their Minister up above saying, we want you to hit this target, but there wasn't permission. And there wasn't commitment. They probably would say they were committed to litter prevention, which is fine, but in terms of why it was important to them as an organisation, that wasn't established. When you ask them, why are you here? It was like, we're here to achieve your Premier's priority. But once you had that conversation with them much in a deeper level, it was like, okay, litter prevention for you means reducing your costs. It's a road safety issue. Once we had that, we had an understanding from them, and we had a different way of talking to them. So I hope that makes sense. I know that's a very quick overview. We've already started moving towards this legacy, this framework model in our grants program. So now we fund councils to not only deliver on-ground litter prevention projects, but we're funding councils to do own it and act projects. And what does that mean? We're funding councils to develop business strategies, business cases for litter prevention, cost of litter studies, training, capacity building, etc. I'll wrap it up there, but that's kind of our vision. I hope that made sense. I feel like I had to rush at the end there from the clicks. We're interested in your feedback. There's my contact details. This is the model. We'll start having conversations with our stakeholders, with our councils in the future. Thanks.